Welcome to the Drop Temp Coffee Podcast. I'm Tim.
And I'm Carrie.
And we're two coffee roasters in the Pacific Northwest talking about the coffee business, the joy of being an entrepreneur, all things coffee roasting, and our coffee culture, and maybe coffee itself. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you listening. So we are not in the same room today. As a matter of fact, we are in two different locations. I'm very lucky that I get to visit with my wife for the next couple of days, but I wanted to take a moment during my quote vacation, unquote, to talk about the things that we're doing really well now. So this episode, we're going to be talking about the things we're doing great now that we didn't do great when we got started in the business. Boy, could we write a book on that. Here's the thing that I am doing well now that 12 years ago when we started I wasn't doing well is understanding the impact that we can have as a company. I think it took us a long time to get started, but man, has it been a fun ride, and here we are. How about you, Carrie? What are you doing great now that you didn't at first?
For me, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, believing in myself and believing in my coffee and my branding is a really important step, and really aligning to who I am, what my coffee represents, and the individuality of it all. So let me start. Let me ask you with this, Tim. Uh, you started. Please excuse me if my memory is not there, but you started in 2012. Is that correct?
That is correct. October the 12th, 2012.
Okay, so why don't we kind of start? Yeah, so why don't we start kind of from there? What was the pivot point? What was the decision that you decided, I'm going to start a coffee roasting company? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. At the time, I was roasting coffee as a hobby, roasting it at home. I started like the most of us when you hobby roast, you usually start with a hot air popcorn popper. But at the time that I started Blind Coffee Roasters, my wife had actually just bought me a product I'm a big fan of, the Hot Top hobby roasting. Does about a pound at a time. And I learned how to translate all the things I'd learned when I was roasting earlier than that into my hobby and being able to actually enjoy it. And there's something great about doing that roasting, like the smell and the sound, and God help me, the taste of the coffee when you're drinking it was really, really fun. But at the time, I went for about a year just doing coffee and giving it away. I really wanted to hear what people had to say, so I distributed it amongst my friends who were Timber's Army members, and we ended up wanting to get started because people really thought that we could do well. And 12 years later, here we are, a bunch of employees, a bunch of accolades, getting to do things like a podcast. This has really been a fantastic 12-year journey.
Very cool. Right on. So in the beginning of, obviously in 2012, you went from home roasting, giving out samples to folks there. What was the reaction from your friends and family members that you were handing out samples to? What was their reaction to your coffee? What did they have to say about that?
Well, it was overwhelmingly positive. The people that I hung out with at that time appreciated coffee, number one, and number two, they ended up enjoying the coffee. The feedback we got from them was dramatically positive. My wife had a little different take. I do love you, hon. The little different take was that she was going to kill me if I gave away more free coffee. It was costing us too much money. So we ended up deciding she was very clear she wanted to start a company to be able to cover the cost of the coffee. And sure enough, that ended up working really well for us. So it really was about us not having to pay for all the coffee I was buying at the time.
So that was kind of the pivotal moment of when you realized that you and Holly, your wife, decided, okay, we're giving this coffee away. We want to, roast coffee for ourselves, and if we're going to give it away to family and friends, then we got to make a business out of that. It sounds like.
That is exactly what happened. The friends and family were very positive, and they really said they would support us, and they have. We still regularly contact the people that were in that first batch of experimentation that led us down the road to making Blind Coffee Roasters what it is. The other steps along the way, we always knew that we wanted to do something that was really personal about the name of the company. We wanted to represent something that had been a major point in our lives. And having my eyesight be a problem really motivated me to make a better version of myself. And ultimately, roasting coffee is making a better version of myself. So that was pretty easy. We got that trademarked almost immediately. Then we ended up finding a associated name online. It took us about a year and a half to get our website up and running. And at the time, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It took us several years to get through. The content was kind of backwards. And even with them, people were being super great about buying coffee online. And we've always done that very, very well. We never really had to have a cafe. That's something else I probably would have changed, by the way, is having a place to sample or drink my coffee more often. That certainly would have been, I think, a better way to go to let people try what we're doing. Kind of like what you do.
So, kind of diving into your coffee selection, right? What type of beans were you starting with, and did anything change from the coffee that you started with to what you currently have on your menu? Because a lot of people don't realize that you have, I kind of know the story of why you choose the different coffees you have. Has that changed at all since you started your company?
It has. We have modified the kind of coffee that we use because we wanted something that was really impressive. At first, one of the things I discovered really early was how wonderful natural processed coffees were. Things we lovingly refer to as fruit bombs. I tried a coffee at a shop in Santa Cruz on a long motorcycle drive. Thank you, Verve Coffee Roasters. We love you guys. And it changed my life. It put me into a different place where I started realizing the coffee could be so much more than just a brown beverage that tastes like chocolate or nuts. But as we developed our taste, we realized that the cost has a direct effect on our ability to produce the coffee. Something else I realized is the more coffee you can buy as a business owner, the more green coffee you can get, the better off the pricing is going to be. So, how has it changed? Well, I wanted to be able to provide coffee to a full spectrum of coffee drinkers. I wanted people who wanted medium roasted coffee to get a fantastic cup of coffee. I want people who drink dark roasted coffee to actually get the dark roasted coffee that they want. I haven't been able to go to the price that I wanted to. There's some coffees I'd love to carry, but I just can't afford to actually buy them. Good example of that, by the way, is Hawaii. How many times do you get asked about Hawaiian coffee, Carrie?
I don't get asked about Hawaiian coffee very much. People have asked me, well, people will tell me about their trips to the coffee farms in Kona or Kauai. And they kind of are like, I went and visited a coffee farm. They showed us how we roast the coffee. I'm like, I would love to take a trip to Hawaii and see all that happen. That'd be amazing. Or a trip to like Colombia or Guatemala or something like that to really see what goes on the farm. But that being said, when it comes to Hawaiian coffee, not so much.
Interesting. Yeah, I get that question all the time. People all the time seem to ask me if I've got a coffee from Kona. I think that's really interesting. I think the other thing that is really different is the branding. I'm going to give a plug to Rick Wade at Wade Graphic Design for helping us come up with a logo to really kind of change the direction of our company. All that being said, I think that I would not be as worried about starting the company as I was. Might have gone for it faster. I think that's what I wish I could have done better. But here we are in a good spot anyway. How about you, Carrie? Tell me what you're doing now that you're doing great that you would have done earlier.
So I've been roasting coffee for 5 years now. Um, I really went from like roasting coffee at home into commercial very quickly, which for me, that was great. So for people who don't know how I got my start, I'll try my best to be brief here. Basically, I came across home roasting listening to a coffee podcast because I actually had a podcast at the time and I was learning about different things in the coffee world that I wanted to translate to my own personal podcast. But I discovered coffee roasting and I started roasting on a cast iron skillet, a popcorn popper. I did have a hot top at one point, wasn't really a huge fan of it. Then I got the Be-More, which I ended up not liking either. Um, but with all that being said, you and I have similar paths where we were both home roasters, where we were roasting coffee at home, ended up giving samples to family, friends, things like that. And we realized we had our aha moment. I knew for me, my very first batch of coffee I roasted was coffee from Bolivia. I roasted it on a cast iron skillet. And if I look back now, I actually have photos of it. And I look at the photos, and I'm like, boy, uh, it's not an even roast. But boy, I tell you, compared to what I was drinking at Starbucks and Dutch Brothers, it was the best cup of coffee I've ever had. And that to me was my aha moment. That's when the sparks were flying and things just really took off from there. So I was curious about how to start a coffee roasting company. I got everything set up. I went to a co-op facility here in Portland, Mr. Green Beans, which is no longer, but I learned to roast coffee with Trevin Miller, who was the owner of Mr. Green Beans. Uh, Learned how to roast on a Probat L12, and I was able to sell my coffee to some folks that were in a mom business networking group, and I quickly built my customer base with them, selling my bags of coffee because I was pretty much the only coffee roaster in my networking group, and things just kind of took off from there.
I really have an appreciation for your story. And by the way, I must say a shout out to Trevin Miller, who was nice enough to be the first person I could buy coffee from on a wholesale basis. Trevin, we miss you. Good guy. Great shop, Mr. Green Beans. Really enjoyed that. He had such a diversity of coffee, by the way, so many different kinds of things that I hadn't experienced beforehand. And actually, I'd love to hear from you, Trevin. With that said, I appreciate the fact that I was able to watch this warehouse go into the cafe that's gone into. Done a really amazing job, particularly lately. Why don't you tell them about what you just did in the shop?
Okay. Well, we some of you might not know, we Tim and I co-share a space together, a roastery in Hillsboro, Oregon, and we also share a space with our friend Noreen from Capital Press Coffee. So all three of us share a roasting facility. We opened our doors in July of 2020, which was the peak of everything going on during the pandemic. And since then, um, we I've been serving coffee out of that cafe. I don't know how many times I have moved around countertops, furniture. I've done all the rearranging that I could think of in the past 4 years that we've been in our space, and uh, trying to make it a welcoming space for everybody. And it just came to a point, I guess, where when Tim basically wanted to run the cafe part time, because before our hours were limited, like a Thursday through Sunday schedule, I didn't have the shop open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays because I wanted to set time aside roasting and production and deliveries and what have you. And having one person 7 days a week is a lot to take on. So when Tim decided he wanted to take on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays to sell his coffee in the shop, I realized that we were gaining a little bit more foot traffic into our space and really wanted to make this space more inviting, more cozy, more welcome, and make it look like a coffee shop. So what we did last weekend is that my customers, believe it or not, were the ones who encouraged me to spruce up the place. It was my community of customers that were like, "Hey, we love you. We want you to thrive. We want this space to thrive. How can we make it more welcoming?" And it was because I listened to my customers, my community of customers, saying that they are willing to help out and volunteer in making the space great. They are investing their time, their energy into making something wonderful, not only for them, but for new people to come in. And I am so forever grateful for my customers. I'm trying not to cry here, but it's so amazing that you have people who rally behind you and believe in you and are really want you to succeed. And to me at the bottom of my heart, that is like the most awesome thing. And I'm sorry if I'm going a little long-winded, but this is very personal for me. And the fact that our coffee community or our customers like came together and took their time to help me paint the walls. We painted the walls this beautiful Acapulco sun orange that we got, and we changed the layout again in the space and made it into this environment that is just so cozy and so warm. And it definitely takes the energy that we already created in the space, but elevated it to another level. And I have to tell you, Tim, I'm actually more in the cafe now than I am in our office because I it just feels so wonderful.
I gotta say that the similarities between the two of us in terms of the way we run our business is also very personal because we make it a point to listen to our customers. I know you do that a lot. It's kind of interesting to watch as people come in and talk about ideas. Oh, and for the record, 4 layouts in 4 years.
That sounds about right. Maybe I change the layout once a year.
Well, hey, if it works, that's great. I must tell you that I would not have chosen orange, but it really worked out well. Everybody could take a look on our social media to see what the end result of that was, but you did a great job. And really, customers coming in helping you to paint is just amazing. We were very lucky when we came into the space that we had a number of people who were already fans. But what this space has allowed us to do is to grow every little aspect of our business. I mean, when we got in there, I had a 5 kilogram roaster, which was pretty much fine for what we were doing. But I realized I was running out of space for storage. And the funniest thing is that coming into our warehouse space, we threw a little get together shindig for our subscribers. And we had 45
I
people
remember that.
show up. Yeah, it was a great party. It was a great party. Live band. Who knew? Never thought I'd be able to do that. I love coffee. I love coffee.
Well, let me tell you this. When I look back in the 4.5 or 5 years, I say 5 years. I know it's not the anniversary yet, but I'm looking back at kind of back on decisions I would have changed and things that I would have implemented. And I think the number one thing was when I initially started my coffee company, I was under the name Elliott and Murray Coffee Roasters, and I wanted to make it feel like a family coffee roasting company. But really, it was more of myself because my husband doesn't drink coffee and he doesn't really have much involvement except he's my true cheerleader.
Oh, Kevin. Oh, Kevin. Kevin.
Kevin. Yeah, for I was very stubborn for the longest time of not changing the name. I was already established a few years in, and I didn't think it was a right move to change my name or change my branding. But over time, my mission, my values as a coffee roasting company, especially a woman owned and operated coffee roasting company, really shifted in my point of view of, being a woman owned coffee roaster really changed my perspective on how I wanted to best represent mothers throughout the specialty coffee industry. So in 2023, I had a huge rebranding, and I actually have to thank Tim here. He really was telling me in the early stages of Roasted by Mom that, hey, you need to really embrace this. And, sometimes Tim will tell me stuff and I'm like, well, whatever. Like, or maybe I'm just not ready to accept it. And sometimes he's right. And Tim, you really nailed it on the head, because you were saying you have a great brand, you have a great name, Roasted by Mom. Roasted by Mom actually started out as a Mother's Day blend, but what I saw when we were selling that blend, we were taking a portion of our profits and donating it to a local nonprofit called Michelle's Love that helps single parents who basically are going through chemotherapy treatments. And Michelle's Love, what they do is that they come in, they help cover payments for like mortgage, rent, they cover groceries, they'll help clean around the house, anything to support these parents going through chemotherapy. So that was the organization I donated portions of my profit to for the Roasted by Mom Mother's Day blend. And it took off, not only because we were supporting a nonprofit, but people were really engaged with the name. They really liked the name Roasted by Mom. And I knew at that point that there was something special with that. And you even knew it too ahead of time, Tim. So I went ahead and filed my paperwork to get it trademarked. And I got that trademarked. But fast forward to, 2023 here, I was kind of changing things around. I created a logo. I have my pinup girl, Betsy, with a little wink and a little smirk going on, and kind of like this vintage retro rockabilly kind of vibe to the brand. And for me, coming from Southern California, that is kind of like my scene. My vibe is punk rock, rebellious, feminist energy that I really wanted to embrace. And so the name, the branding just really incorporated into that. And as I moved over, I decided to change over everything with the company, and people have been really, really engaged with that, really embraced. They absolutely love the new branding. They love the bags and everything. So if I would have gone back a few years ago, I could have told myself, hey, you should be Roasted by Mom instead of Elliott Murray Coffee Roasters. But you know what? That's okay, because at the end, I mean, people would liked it then, but they would like it now. And I'm really happy overall with the huge rebranding. I think that was a major shift for me as a entrepreneur and a business owner.
Okay, I appreciate your acknowledgement of my encouragement first. Thank you. And second, that was all your idea. So nobody give me credit on this. There is none. This is all about Carrie. What's interesting for me, our original logo was actually designed by a customer. As a matter of fact, somebody who is still, I hope, listening. And thank you. I want to give some credit to Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca. But we knew we needed a refresh. We had had the same basic branding for 5 years. It had started reaching out, and we needed something cleaner and more direct and something that held more. I think rebranding is something that you have to go through because eventually your ideas change a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, every business is going to take a look back and see what's working and not what's not working, right? And I think that was kind of like my ignorance as a business owner, was not understanding what my customers were seeing and understanding, and is my message relating to what the customers are engaging with. I mean, granted, there's a point where you listen to your customers, and if the message is consistent, obviously there's something going on. So this was another thing that I wish I would have told myself a few years back was if a customer tells you something, and if one customer tells you one thing, take it with a grain of salt. But if you have a group of customers that are keep telling you the same thing of what they want and what they're looking for, then you got to listen to that. So that is something I would have told myself when I first started. If the message is consistent, then obviously something has to change.
I completely agree with that. I think it's really important. I was very resistant to doing dark roast when I first started, just because I didn't know how well it was going to go, but it's been one of the stars on our menu, and it's something that we offer regularly that other people don't. Anyway, you know what? We're here now, and I feel good about what's going on. I don't know if I'd change a thing. I would have started things faster. I would have made things go 5 years earlier. But honestly, I'm pretty stoked on where I am, particularly teaming up with the people around my warehouse, because that creative juice really helps. And you're absolutely right, by the way. If you have people telling you the same thing over and over again, you should listen.
I mean, there's so many things that right now, currently in the moment, I feel like this year, Roasted by Mom is really going to take off brand new into 2024. I would describe last year or the last couple of years as more of development. Yeah, I've had some high moments and low moments, but now that I've gotten that under my belt, and statistically, for me to still be in business is amazing, because they say that the average business can't survive a year or 3 years into business. A lot of businesses fade out. And I've been fortunate to be in a place where I have a community, my family supporting me, to be able to still continue on with my coffee business. I'm forever grateful. But, at the same time, the mistakes that I have made, I also learned, and I have moved on with it and learned not to make the same mistake again. I feel like I don't think I would change anything. This is more growth heading into it, and it's just going to get better from here. I just want to wrap up in this episode and say this is that for anyone who is curious about what it's like working in the coffee industry or being a coffee roaster, feel free to reach out to Tim or myself when it comes to, asking questions, because you're more than welcome to pick our brains about our, learning more about us and our experience. And we're pretty open about sharing that.
I agree completely. And we say it regularly. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us individually, or you could always go to hello@droptemp.coffee to be able to ask us questions. We'd love to support you. We do a number of things around our roastery as well to help roasters that want to gain some experience, including renting our equipment. So please don't be afraid to reach out to us.
Well, we appreciate everybody who's been listening to our episode. And just to let you know that we are open to sponsorships. So if you are interested in sponsoring Tim and I and supporting us in our podcast adventure, please feel free to reach out to us, and we can give you some more information on that.
Thank you very much for listening. We would love additional sponsors, and we want to say a quick hello to Primo Roasting Equipment, because they make the best machine I've ever used.
It's award-winning coffee that comes out of that roaster. I'm really proud of Primo Roasting Equipment. That is the roaster we use. That's Tim's roaster, Oscar. And I had the opportunity to go down there about a year or two ago to actually see their facility in California. I was really impressed with the quality of their materials that they use to build the roasters, and actually get to see roasters being built and roasting on the machine. And it was a really great opportunity. So thank you so much, Primo Roasters, for being our sponsor for our podcast. Take care. Thanks for joining us. If you like our podcast or our coffee, give us a 5-star review whenever you listen to podcasts. You can order our coffee at blindcoffeeroasters.com or roastedmymom.com. Got a question for us? Go ahead and email us at hello@droptemp.coffee.